Russia is giving this land away. Almost nobody wants it. In 2016, the Russian government started giving away free land. Any citizen could claim a full hectare, about 2.5 acres, in the eastern half of the country, for nothing. No catch. Just take it and live there. Because the eastern half of Russia is almost completely empty, and it empties out faster every year. This is the largest piece of habitable land on the planet with almost nobody on it. 3/4 of the country, 1/4 of its people. Most people assume they know why. It is Siberia, it is frozen, case closed. But the cold is not the reason. Russia builds cities in the coldest places on Earth. The real reasons this land stays empty are stranger, and they start with a single railway line. This is No One Lives Here, where we map the emptiest places on Earth and work out why they stay that way. Eastern Russia might be the greatest example on the planet. It is not a desert. It is not an ice cap. It has rivers, forests, oil, gold, diamonds, and some of the largest cities ever built in the far north. And it still cannot hold its people. There are 4 real reasons this land empties out, and freezing weather is not one of them. First, understand the scale, because it does not sound real. Draw a line down the Ural Mountains, the low ridge that splits Russia into its European west and its Asian east. West of that line sits about 23% of Russia's land. East of it, everything else, roughly 3/4 of the largest country on Earth. Now count the people. Around 77% of all Russians live on the western quarter. The eastern 3/4, an area larger than the entire United States, holds barely 1/5 of the population, and the numbers thin out fast as you go east. Western Siberia still has real cities. But keep going, into the Far East, and the map goes dark. The Far Eastern district covers 40% of Russia by itself, an area of about 2.4 million square miles, and fewer than 8 million people live in all of it. That is a region twice the size of India, holding fewer people than New York City. Go further, to the far northeast, and it barely registers as inhabited at all. Chukotka, the region across the strait from Alaska, is the size of France and Germany combined and holds about 50,000 people. That is not a low density. That is one of the emptiest inhabited places anywhere on Earth, and it sits inside the same country as Moscow. Now the explanation everyone reaches for. It is empty because it is Siberia, and Siberia is frozen. It sounds airtight, until you notice that Russia has already filled the cold with cities. Novosibirsk, deep in western Siberia, holds 1.6 million people. Krasnoyarsk, over 1 million. Omsk, over 1 million. These are not southern towns. They sit at latitudes and winter temperatures that would terrify most of the planet, and millions of people live in them anyway. Winters there routinely fall past 30 below, and the cities run normally, with universities, factories, and metro lines operating straight through the freeze. Then look at the extremes. Yakutsk is the coldest city on Earth. Winter nights, there drop past 40 below, sometimes past 60 below, and around 355,000 people call it home. Norilsk sits above the Arctic Circle with about 180,000 people and no road connecting it to the rest of the country. If cold emptied land, none of these cities would exist. Russia has proven, again and again, that it can plant a large city in the most brutal cold on the planet and keep it running. So temperature is clearly not the filter. Something let Russia build Novosibirsk and Yakutsk, and something else keeps the enormous spaces between them empty. 3 structural forces, and the first one is the reason almost everyone here lives on a single thin line. Reason 1. Almost the entire population of eastern Russia is strung along one railway line. The Trans-Siberian Railway runs from Moscow to the Pacific port of Vladivostok. It is 5,772 miles long, the longest railway on Earth, and it crosses 8 time zones. For most of Siberia and the Far East, that single line, plus a second northern branch called the BM, is the spine that everything hangs off. Look at a population map of eastern Russia, and you do not see a spread of people. You see a thread. The cities line up like beads along the tracks. Omsk, Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, Irkutsk, and then a vast nothing to the north and to the south of the rail. Off the line, distances stop making sense. Vladivostok, Russia's main eastern city, is closer to Beijing, Tokyo, and Seoul than it is to Moscow. Getting there by train takes about 6 days. A large share of far eastern settlements have no road link to the national network at all. They are reached by river barge in summer, by ice road across frozen rivers in winter, or by plane. And when everything you need arrives by plane or barge, everything costs far more. The land off the railway is not unlivable. It is just so far from everything that the economics never close, so people stay on the thread, or they leave the region entirely. Reason 2, and it is the same enemy that empties the Arctic everywhere. The ground will not hold still. Around 2/3 of Russia sits on permafrost, soil that stays frozen all year, in places to depths of hundreds of feet. You cannot simply build on it. The moment you put a heated building on permafrost, your own warmth leaks into the ground, thaws the ice inside the soil, and the earth turns to mud. Buildings sink, walls crack, roads ripple and split. So in the permafrost zone, everything serious has to stand on piles driven deep into the frozen layer, holding the structure up off the ground so the cold air can keep circulating underneath. Yakutsk, the largest city built on continuous permafrost, is a city on stilts. Its apartment blocks sit on concrete piles sunk about 30 feet into the frozen earth, with an open gap beneath every building. That engineering multiplies the cost of everything. A road, a pipeline, a school, an apartment. And now the ground is betraying even that. The Russian Arctic is warming several times faster than the global average, and the permafrost holding up these cities is beginning to thaw. Buildings in Norilsk and Yakutsk are already cracking as their frozen foundations soften. You cannot grow a region when the ground under it is turning to soup. Reason 3 is the one that makes eastern Russia different from anywhere else, and it is the heart of the whole story. Most of the cities out here were not built by markets. They were built by order. In the Soviet era, the state decided where people would live, and it put cities wherever it found something worth digging up, no matter how remote or how cold. Norilsk exists because of nickel. It was built in the 1930s by prisoners of the Gulag, the Soviet forced labor camps. Hundreds of thousands of inmates passed through, and tens of thousands died in the cold building a mining city inside the Arctic Circle. Magadan, on the Pacific coast, was the gateway to the Kolyma labor camps, and the highway inland is nicknamed the Road of Bones because the prisoners who died building it were buried in the roadbed. These places were never meant to make economic sense. They existed because a central planner in Moscow willed them into being and shipped in people, often by force, to run them. For decades, the Soviet state kept them alive with huge subsidies, hardship bonuses, and guaranteed supply lines, paying people well above the national wage just to endure the cold and the distance. As long as Moscow kept paying, the cities held. And then, in 1991, Moscow stopped. Reason 4. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the machine that held Eastern Russia together switched off almost overnight. The subsidies dried up. The hardship pay vanished. The guaranteed jobs at the state mines and factories disappeared, and millions of people who had been paid to live in the coldest, most remote corner of the country suddenly had no reason to stay. So they left. The Far East has lost roughly a quarter of its people since 1991, and the northern regions were gutted far worse. Magadan has lost around 3/4 of its population. Chukotka, across the water from Alaska, has lost about 2/3. Whole towns built around a single mine were simply abandoned, left to freeze empty in the tundra. You can still find them on satellite maps, grids of roofless apartment blocks with the forest creeping back through the streets. And unlike a normal recession, this one never really reversed. The people who leave are the young and the skilled, and every year more follow. That is why, in 2016, the government resorted to giving land away, the free hectare we started with, practically begging citizens to move east. It has barely moved the numbers. Because you cannot pay someone to stay in a place whose entire reason for existing, a planned Soviet economy, no longer exists. The cold did not empty eastern Russia. The end of the country that built it did. So put the whole file together. It is not the cold. Russia proved it can build million-person cities in Siberia and plant towns in the worst cold on Earth. Eastern Russia is empty because almost everyone is strung along one railway thread, with unreachable distances on either side. Because 2/3 of the country sits on ground that will not hold a building without stilts driven deep into the ice. Because the cities out here were placed by Soviet planners and Gulag labor, not by anyone choosing to live there. And because when the Soviet Union fell, the subsidies that made those places survivable fell with it, and the people walked away. Russia is now giving land away for free and still cannot fill the space. That is the pattern this channel keeps finding. The force that makes a place vast and wild and full of resources is usually the same force that keeps it empty. Eastern Russia holds 1/5 of the world's fresh water and huge reserves of oil, gold, and diamonds, and almost no one to live beside them. The map was drawn by a country that no longer exists. This is No One Lives Here, where we map the emptiest places on Earth and the reasons they stay that way. Next file, Mongolia. An entire country the size of Western Europe with just 2 people per square mile. The emptiest nation on the planet. And its emptiness is a very different story. Subscribe, and we will see you on the next map.